Hi everyone. This is Kul and Abot, Ni'imot v'Tobot. By the time you would have received this video, Pesach is over for you. So I hope you enjoyed, although it's not for me right now, but I hope you enjoyed your Pesach and your meals and your prayers with your families. I hope your families are well, safe, and healthy. And of course, we begin by wishing a refuah shlema lechol cholei amo Yisrael, and especially all the sick in our community. May Hashem heal them speedily, very soon. Amen. So today we learn together the next two Mishnayot in Pirke Abot, Perek Aleph in chapter 1. That's Mishnayot numbers 4 and 5. So I'm going to read with you just the first two names of Mishnah number 4, and then give you a little background in terms of what those names symbolize. So Yosef ben Yoezer ish Sereda, Yosef ben Yohanan ish Yerushalayim qibelu mehem. These two Hachamim, Yosef ben Yoezer, known as Ish Sereda, possibly where he came from, and Yosef ben Yohanan ish Yerushalayim, men of stature from the cities they came from. Qibelu mehem, they received from the previous Hachamim that you learned from the previous two recordings, namely Shimon HaSadiq in Mishnah number 2 and Antichnos Ish Socho in Mishnah number 3. Let me just give you a little background, and it'll attach itself a little bit to Rabbi Tobias's first class's introductory and background discussion regarding the transmission of Torah Sheba'al Peh, of the oral law. Of course, as you know, God decided that although the written law was given on Mount Sinai, that the oral law, which was also given on Mount Sinai, would not be recorded. There will be no official composition of Torah Sheba'al Peh, of the oral law. And because of that, it was transmitted, so to speak, Be'al Peh, by heart, over many generations. Although there were notes that were written, there were personal recordings by the great Hachamim and prophets and leaders of the generations, there was no official composition. And that went on throughout the times of all the prophets. And through the destruction of the first temple, the first Beit HaMikdash, where the leaders were known as the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, the Great Assembly. And in Mishnah Gimel, you learned about Shimon HaSadiq, who was of the last surviving great Hachamim of leaders of the Great Assembly. Each one of those Hachamim, each one of those leaders, prophets of the generations, were responsible for the transmission of the oral law. What does that mean? It means that because there was no official composition, that person or those people were responsible. They carried the burden and the responsibility of making sure that that oral law remained whole, intact, accurate, and they educated it to their generation and ensured its continuity to the next generation and eventually for all future generations of Am Yisrael. That took the form of single individuals until we reach our Mishnah, which is a time period, depending on your historical count. This is somewhere between 24 to 2600 years ago. A little less actually, because the Great Assembly spanned a certain time. So let's say it's between 23 to 2500 years ago. And the Mishnah now names two Hachamim, Yosef ben Yoezer and Yosef ben Yohanan. They received the transmission and thereby the burden and the responsibility to carry and to transmit to future generations the oral law from Shimon HaSadiq and from his student Antichnos Ish Socho. When I say they, there is now all of a sudden a pair of Hachamim. This pair is known as a zug, which means a pair or a partnership. But we're told that these zugot, these pairs, which lasted for really generations, were held two very specific high positions in Am Yisrael. In fact, the two highest positions. One was called the Nasi, and the other was called the Av Bedin. And the Mishnah names them respectively in order. The first one, which is Yosef ben Yoezer, was the Nasi. The Nasi literally means president in modern Hebrew, but it was referring to really the leader of the generation, made many decisions, be they religious, halachic, political decisions. And the other was the Av Bedin, the Hakam that was responsible in the head of the great court, and was the one on top of making all of the authoritative halakha decisions of his generation. These two Hakamim were called a zug, a pair, and from this generation and on, and it'll reflect itself in the next few Mishnayot after this in the first chapter, the oral law will be transmitted through two generational leaders, and that's the difference that takes place right here in Mishnah Dalit and Mishnah number 4. So we will now quote the adages that each one of these Hachamim were known to say and were famous for framing and teaching and educating people with. One Hakam will take up the rest of the 4th Mishnah, and the other will be in the 5th Mishnah. So Yosef ben Yo'ezet Ish Sereda says as follows. He has 3 proverbs, and I'll just frame them in advance and introduce them by saying that they all revolve around our approach to Talmidei Hachamim. When I use the word Talmid Hacham, I don't like to use the English word rabbi. What I'd like you to imagine when I say Talmid Hacham is an extremely knowledgeable person who's committed his life to Torah study, who has a wide scope and breadth of Torah knowledge, and he not only knows but teaches, disseminates that knowledge throughout the Am Yisrael. It's a person of great esteem and high stature, and a person of very fine character, an anav, a humble person who masters all the great qualities that we would imagine a great leader of Am Yisrael would. Picture that image when we say the word Talmid Hacham. So here are the 3 proverbs that Yosef ben Yo'ezet teaches us about our approach to Talmidei Hachamim. The first is Yeheh betecha bedvar lehachamim, which means literally your house should be a meeting house or a meeting place for Hachamim. So there are a few ideas here. The first one is that when Talmidei Hachamim in your vicinity, your neighborhood, in your community, in your city, need a place to meet, literally, to convene. For some reason, the Bet Knesset, the Bet Midrash, the synagogue is not sufficient. Maybe it's not big enough, not accommodating enough. Maybe it's just a private meeting. Make your house the central focal point. Accommodate them. Give them a place where they feel comfortable speaking in private and being accommodated by you in your house. Make your house known, in fact, as a central address where Hachamim may come and visit and convene a meeting with the leaders of that community and say, where can we have a private place to speak? Oh, well, right there is the address. That person accommodates Hachamim. On the other hand, this is very advantageous to the person, the homeowner himself, as he builds an environment of Torah in his house. And as one of the commentaries gives an analogy to help explain, a person has a perfume store, the walls of his store will always smell like perfume. A person who has Hachamim in his house, it'll be palatable, it'll be tangible. He will always be able to feel the Torah environment in his house. So that's adage number 1. Adage number 2, v'haveh mitabech be'afar rachlehem. Literally, this means you should cling to the dust of their legs. So there's 2 different images that we're trying to depict. One, and both are literal. One is that when you walk behind someone, they kick up dust, and by the virtue of the fact that you're behind them, you're clinging to their dust. The other is that it was a respectful protocol and a structure in a Beit Midrash for Hachamim to sit on maybe higher chairs, and for students to sit on lower benches, or even to sit in the ground by their legs, literally clinging to the dirt of their legs, so to speak. But both images are supposed to be conveying the same message, and that is follow Hachamim. There is a famous saying in the Gemara, and that is Gadol Shimushan Yoter Milimudan. It is even greater, it is more advantageous for us to serve and accommodate and be around Hachamim, even more so than studying from them. And that is because they are looked at as walking Sifrei Torah. We stand for a Hacham like we stand for a Torah because, as they say in Hebrew, Hainu Hach, they're one and the same. And if a person is fortunate enough to garner a relationship with a Tamid Hacham and to be a person that brings him to and fro, and a person that literally serves him, a person that accommodates him on an educational basis, on a physiological basis, maybe providing for him food, etc., even does his shopping for him. Every time that you have the opportunity to be around such a person of great stature is an educational experience, and you will learn more from just watching and being in the vicinity of that Hacham that you could ever do by hearing words from him. And therefore, the Hachamim right now are suggesting to us to always take advantage of those opportunities. And the final adage of this Mishnah is Veheveh shoteh basama et dibrehem, literally, and drink their words with thirst. This is a directive, first and foremost, for the way we should take advantage of learning from great people, and more generally speaking, what our attitude should be to studying Torah specifically. We should take advantage of Hachamim, people of knowledge, people of great stature that we're exposed to, that we have access to, and we should be so eager to study from them. And this is just a fantastic mashal. It's such a fantastic parable that's being given here. We should imagine ourselves, so we fasted all day, Yom Kippur. We're yearning water. We want so badly to drink. We're so thirsty. With that zest, with that motivation, we should want to study and be able to be so fortunate as to receive words of wisdom from the mouths of Hachamim. On a more general directive, the Hachamim are really giving us very strong advice in terms of our attitude towards learning. We should forever be looking to build ourselves educationally, intellectually in our Torah. Our Torah is a vast ocean of never-ending knowledge. The only way that we grow as individuals and grow as Jews and foster our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to heighten that knowledge, is to never stop thirsting for that knowledge, never stop building ourselves, never stop improving ourselves, and really operate with alacrity at all times, and always feel a need to further build ourselves in our knowledge of Torah. And this also means that in terms of our attitude, we should always ask questions and be curious, but never question and never be cynical. And sometimes that even means accepting without understanding, trusting our traditions so much that I want to know to be able to follow, and I don't quite understand completely, and I will, and I'll never stop my quest to understand, but until I do, I will practice, and that is all inclusive in this directive of Hachamim. Okay, so the next Mishnah He, is authored by the partner of the previous Hacham, Yosef ben Yohanan, who was the Av Bedin, Ish Yerushalayim, great man of stature of the city of Jerusalem. And it's the first time Yerushalayim is mentioned in Pirke Abot. And here he has three parables as well, three adages as well. And the first two, you can say, we just frame in general advice of hospitality. The first is Yeheh betecha patuach levaha. Literally, it's hard to capture this in English. Your house should be open to its space. On one hand, there are two roots in that word lidvaha, and both give a different message. The first one is ruach, directional. And the commentators are quick to point out that this is analogous to Abraham Abinu, who, as we know from our traditional sources, had a house, had a tent that was open on four sides. And those who passed by, the sojourners, the travelers, were so comfortable to pass by Abraham's house, enter, grab a meal if they needed to, even sleep over if they had to, because he was hospitable, he made people feel comfortable. So your house should be so open to those who need. Maybe it's someone's passing through and needs to sleep over, maybe just someone who needs a meal, and therefore create an environment of comfort and accommodation in your house where it's open, lirvaha, to all its directions, so to speak. Another root is the word revach. Revach can mean profit in modern Hebrew. It can mean spaciousness. And in general, it alludes to a favorable environment. Create really an auspicious setting in your house where people feel comfortable when they want to seek something out they have in need. You are the address. Maybe they seek advice if you're the right person to give it. They seek counsel. Maybe they seek comfort. Perhaps they seek financial help. Give them a loan. In general, they know that you are a person that's compassionate and empathetic to his fellow man, his fellow Jew, and feel comfortable. And others, in fact, point those in need to your house because you created that reputation. And we do know so many great people in our history, past and current, in our community rather, past and current, who create such hospitable houses and are therefore, constantly giving people their various needs, be they spiritual or physical. And then the second adage, and poor people should be people of your house. This doesn't mean that, God forbid, your family should be poor people. It means there are two different comments given here. The first is that instead of, if you have people, employees working in your house, in your complex, and by the way, this could extend to your business even, why not hire people that are in need? Why not hire people in your community, maybe even relatives, people that really are in financial need? Give them a sense of pride, give them a sense of dignity at the same time, also filling your need of employees and workers. So let Aniyim, the poor, be the people of your house. Let them be your workers and your paid employees. And you'll be fulfilling a lot and satisfying yourself and even more so them at the same time. Another explanation is that literally, you should so often host the needy, be it in a meal of Yom Tov, as halakha demands of us, have them actual guests on your table, sometimes even to sleep over, whatever they need, so much so that it seems like the people of your household are actually the poor, because they're so often are present in your household, and you're known for that. We should aspire to creating such an accommodating household where the needy and the poor could always find a location in which they seek their comfort and their needs in your house. The final statement seems detached from the first two. I'm going to read the first line and then give you a little explanation. Yosef ben Yohanan says, "Ve'al tarbeh siha im ha'isha," and don't overabundantly engage in conversation with women. Now, I will tell you that in 2020, Yosef ben Yohanan might be fired from his position for political incorrectness. But I want to tell you that this saying is meant to be not archaic, it's meant to be very applicable and is throughout the age, including in our days, and I will explain. Just to back up a bit, we know that one of the most severe iniquities and transgressions that we have, the Goyim have as well, but especially we have, the Jewish people, is either adultery, God forbid, or any other type of illicit relationship. And there are so many Torah laws and rabbinical laws that serve to distance us from coming anywhere near that position. We know how incredibly damaging that type of heinous act is for that person, that person's family, that person's community, and for generations to come. Needless to say, this Mishnah not accidentally addresses a man. And we know that men are wired differently. I don't want to say in a negative way, but in a very real way, and have different set of hormones as instilled into them by their creator God, very different than the female race. And because of that, Hachamim are here warning men more than they warn women. And they're warning them really not of speaking to women, because that's okay, but speaking of married women and speaking of having possible private and sometimes intimate conversations. Because once may be okay, great need, maybe even a great deed of kindness, sometimes certainly appropriate. Don't make it a habit, especially with the same person, because we're human beings, and human beings slip. And if they slip too much, the slope is very slippery, and we end up in a terrible place, God forbid. And so Hachamim say, don't be overabundant you, Mr. Male Jew, in engaging in conversation with a married woman, it says, "Bi'ishto amru ka v'homer be'eshet havero." They even spoke of one's wife, and Abot, the Rabbi Natan explains, one wife when she is a nidah. And when one's a nidah, of course, marital relations are prohibited, and a person has to create personal boundaries, even in his own house. And we know, of course, that halakha has many rules and regulations that help us with these personal boundaries. But the Mishnah here says, Hachamim spoke of a person's own wife, and all the more so, kal v'homer, of his fellow man's wife. Mikan amru Hachamim. From here, Hachamim said, from this adage, Hachamim took it to the next step and extended that comment and said, Kol zeman she'adam arbes yachai am ha'isha gurem ra'al asmo ubotel midivrei Torah v'sofo yiresh gehinam. If a person is not careful with these personal boundaries and exposes himself to danger, then he, first of all, gurem ra'al asmo, he causes difficulty and potential sin for himself, even though he thinks that he got away with something. Hey, look, I was able to get close to the fire and not get burnt. He would tell the person, don't go next to the fire again because you will get burnt. He causes difficulty for himself. At best, botel midivrei Torah, he's wasting time at very best if he didn't sin, or if it didn't lead to sin this time, but sofo yoresh gehinam. At the end, he may find himself in a tragic, disastrous place in terms of his own transgression, and make a very short-sighted and impromptu and impulsive decision out of desire, just starting with an innocent conversation, but one too many, and leading to terrible sin. This is advice for us, for all ages, and even for the lighter sins that we have to try to avoid, that a person must be wise and always must know himself, know a person's general draws and desires and tendencies, and create boundaries, personal boundaries, and never take a chance to get to a place that he will regret eventually in his life. This is the end of Mishnah He. I hope you enjoyed, and stay healthy, safe, and enjoy the time with your family. Thank you.